Today's guest on a Life and Living podcast is Oonagh O'Hagan, who is the managing director, the founder and managing director of the Mars Pharmacy Group, which is a group of pharmacies based in Ireland. And they really were in a very unique position when all of COVID hit insofar as they were, as an essential service, they were open, and as a retailer, they were open. But they discovered very soon afterwards that, they really shouldn't be encouraging their customers to come into the store for very good health reasons. And Oonagh explains that in the interview. But also, she found that having an online business, having created an online business a number of years ago, that actually gave her the perfect platform to really ensure that she was able to look after and deal with her clients, and that her staff were able to, kind of give out the medication that was required in a way that was safe, both for the staff and also for the patient. But I think that, with that very, very unique positioning that they had as being a retailer open, it certainly did give rise to a lot of challenges for the business and for Oonagh herself. And one of the things that she talks a lot about is the having the right people, trusting the right people and giving clarity and direction to the right people, but also just taking the right next step. And that was the approach that she took in leading through COVID. So I really encourage you to listen to this. I think there's a lot of really, really great nuggets in here from Oonagh. She's a great leader, a great leader of people, and she is just a wonderful people person. So you will get an awful lot from this interview, and that you can really take back to your own businesses and implement for the future. So I encourage you to sit back and listen to Oonagh O'Hagan. Oonagh, thanks so much for joining me today on the podcast. I'm really excited to listen to your experience of leading through COVID.
Well, thanks a million for the invite, John. It's been a pleasure. It's been a very challenging time, as you can imagine. Despite the fact that we are an essential service, and very grateful to remain open through the entire time. Unlike some of our other retail colleagues, I guess, it has certainly been anything but easy, So
I can well imagine that. So just giving a bit of context for people listening, maybe describe the business of Mars Pharmacy in a very high level so that people get a sense, because I think it is a very unique position.
Yeah, well, we have 9 pharmacies, physical bricks and mortar pharmacies here in Dublin, and so across a number of different communities. So everything from city centre, we trade underneath the Google building down in Barrow Street, to community pharmacies, and then we have a pharmacy in the Mater Hospital. So very diverse, I suppose, locations, and as a result of that, very diverse customers that we're serving with different needs, I guess. And then we have an online store, mars.ie, which we set up a number of years ago, which initially was serving our local communities in terms of click and collect, but we've now moved, I suppose, 2 or 3 years ago to nationwide delivery. And since that, and particularly since this global pandemic, we're now shipping to 58 countries globally as well. So really bringing, I suppose, the Mars experience right across the globe.
Well, that's fantastic. But I mean, when you go back, and you remember this better than I will, but when we went back to that time in March, and suddenly everybody was told to shut down, but because you're essential service, you can stay open. You must have kind of think, okay, well, what the hell do we do now? We're kind of got to stay open, but we're not going to have people coming in. How did you respond and react to that, to actually just keep everything moving forward?
Yeah, so it was really difficult. As I said, we were really glad that we could stay open. And of course, because our business is, our core business is looking after prescription needs and medicines and healthcare advice for our customers. And if you think about that, most of our customers either need a healthcare product for whatever reason. So they may be undergoing treatment, they may have an underlying condition, they may have a medical condition, or they may care for other people who do. We have a lot of elderly customers, as you can imagine, and people who come to us are generally, and now we do sell a lot of skincare and beauty products and all the rest, but they're generally coming in because they have a healthcare condition, or they are coming in to visit us to pick up something for someone who does have a healthcare condition. So if you think about that, then a lot of our customers are high risk customers. They're vulnerable, they have underlying conditions, or they have are a loved one that has an underlying condition. And so we were in this kind of unique position where we were open and we were trading. We're an essential service, which was all great, but actually the people that we were looking after were the most vulnerable people within our communities. And then we have this other conundrum that we had where because we were open and we were accessible, because back at the very beginning, like the GPs were snowed under, you couldn't get through to a GP, you couldn't get through on their phones. All of the hospital appointments were cancelled, if you recall. So there was no other accessible healthcare place to go if you needed a problem solved. So we had this, I suppose, surge of people coming in, either looking for medicines and stockpiling their medicines, or who were displaying COVID symptoms. And despite all of the advice to stay at home, they were coming into us either having symptoms or coming in for someone who they were caring for that had symptoms. So they were close contact. And they were coming into a place to pick up, whether it be paracetamol or something for a cough or whatever, or even just coming in for a mask or the hand sanitizer. Like, who'll ever forget everybody looking for hand sanitizer in Ireland? They were coming in for that. And they were standing right next to a customer who was coming in to pick up, medication because they were under cancer treatment. So we were a melting pot, an absolute melting pot. And we recognized that really early, that this was not a safe way to be operating. It wasn't safe for our teams, and it wasn't safe for our customers. So we had to pivot and we had to change and adapt really quickly, John. So despite us being open, and the general, I suppose, thing that all retailers want is to drive footfall into store, we were saying, we're open, we're here, but we don't want you to come in. Actually stay at home, we'll come to you. And we changed really quickly to that message. We were encouraging everybody to stay at home, and we set up a helpline in order for people to actually contact us. And we would divert people then from that helpline to the most appropriate care. So whether it be a prescription item, whether it be that they needed a vitamin or they wanted something for COVID symptoms, then we could look after it. We had the beauty of already having an online store set up for many years. And so we had that logistics system down to a T. So we were able to plug into that in order to get the prescriptions out to people. So next day delivery nationwide, same day delivery within Dublin. We were able to plug into that logistics channel, I suppose, in order to serve our customers, albeit in a very different way. Now, the big thing that people missed initially was that face-to-face consultation with our pharmacists and our pharmacy teams, because even though we give out medicines and drugs and people think that's what pharmacists do, I'm in here for my prescription, actually the role is so much bigger than that. We're there for comfort, reassurance, advice. So we're real educators on medicines and on symptoms and, what people are actually going through. So people really, really missed that. And that's why a lot of people used our helpline service. But very quickly we could see, when people were delivering prescriptions, our feedback from our logistics team was that lady is really struggling at such and such a number, whatever. So we set up the first ever video consultation for a pharmacist in Ireland, which was basically a platform that was endorsed by the HSE. So it was basically, we could send a link to a customer, they could open the link without downloading any apps or anything like that, and they could speak to a pharmacist face to face. And that was hugely important to a lot of our customers, very vulnerable and felt very alone and scared, really, John, because they were at home, family couldn't visit them, and all they were watching was the RTE News or Sky News, where it was just fear, pure fear.
Yeah, bad news all the time. I mean, it's interesting when you talk about that, because how do you think you would have managed if you hadn't got the online? Because you can't, because as we know, it's not something you can just start tomorrow and have the infrastructure built.
Yeah.
How would you have managed if you didn't have that?
It would have been incredibly challenging, because we would have had to, well, initially in the first week or so, we were using like the guards, we were using volunteers, local community were getting in contact with us saying, what can we do? Like, we're working from home now, or we're laid off, can we help? Students, pharmacy students, we had like lots of volunteers delivering medicines just to get them out quickly around Dublin. But that just wasn't a safe way to do things. And it wasn't, because we had no tracking on, did somebody get something delivered or not? So to be honest with you, it was much better having the system and the logistics channel that we had, because we could track safe delivery. We knew things were being delivered. And then we were able to get feedback as well from that logistics company, on you know, when you were delivering to there, what was the feedback back?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was, I think it would have been even more challenging if we didn't have online, to be honest, because of course, look, everybody was looking for vitamin D. Obviously, there was a lot of research out of the link to vitamin D and COVID and how it can really protect you. People were looking for vitamins and minerals, you know, products for gut health, because obviously good gut health, it really bolsters your immunity. So there was a lot of, I suppose, demand for other products, even PPE, you know, masks and
Yeah.
sanitizer and all of that. So to get all of that out in the midst of getting out all of our prescriptions would have been a real challenge. So we were able to get all of, I suppose, the non-essential items, as we would describe it, and the non-medical things out really from online, and really drive the online business and drive all of our customers to go online. And that was a safe and efficient way for them to get access to those products,
Yeah.
you know.
And for you, as I mean, because I know that, you know, that you're very much a hands-on. I mean, you're the founder, you're the managing director of the business, but you're very hands-on. You're very much out there in the field. What adjustments did you have to make to your own role as the leader of the business?
Oh, well, you're dead right. You know, I like to have the banter, as you know, I'm definitely a people person. So I found it really hard, you know, because from the 12th of March, we were out of that office, and, you know, within 48 hours, our entire team were set up at home, which was a real challenge in itself to actually do
I
that.
can
And
imagine.
yeah, set up all the processes and everything, because obviously people need access to invoicing and all that kind of stuff. So, but we were able to do that, which was fantastic. But personally, myself, I found it really challenging just not to be around people and not to physically see my team and know that they were okay. So, so I think for me, and don't forget the schools were off as well. So I had two young ones at home too,
Mm.
like, you know, trying to get them onto Zoom meetings and Google Classrooms, and oh my God. And I'm not the best at technology at the best of times, John, as you well know. So, so that was a real challenge. And dealing with, you know, my phone was hopping all of the time saying, oh, this problem's just arisen, that problem's just arisen. And yet my two children were like, Mom, I have to get on this classroom at 2 o'clock. And of course, and somebody else had to get onto a different piece of technology at 2:15 for whatever class, because all of their classes went actually online. So it was a real struggle, I suppose, as a working mum, to try and make all of that happen. So I really struggled with that, and I really struggled just not being around my team, just to make sure that they actually were okay. But I mean, we just had to adapt. We had to. It wouldn't have been a safe thing for us to do, to all get together, because then if one of us
Sure.
became COVID positive, the whole thing would have came crashing down. So it was really challenging just to figure out new ways to engage with the team and make sure that they were okay, and, you know, just checking in with them every
Yeah.
day, you know, and
And
helping with them.
and if you think about that, Una, what would you say as the leader and the manager of the business? What was the biggest challenge for you?
Probably managing myself, John, I would say. You know, I find it incredibly hard, because the information was changing on a daily basis, and because, you know, one day we would be told, here's the advice to do around face
Right.
masks. Remember, there was no face masks, and they were not such a good idea, and the HSE and everybody was saying nobody's to wear face masks, right? And then the next week it was, so we were working on communications to explain that not only to our team but to our customers. And then the next week it could have been different change, you know. So really it was managing all of that communication, and, you know, and trying to be as concise and as articulate with that, and as simple with that, to our teams and to our customers. That was a real challenge, and people were coming to me all of the time looking for the answers, and the truth is I didn't have the answers. Nobody had the answers. So I found, I suppose, as a leader, you know, I knew I had to step up and I had to lead from the front, but I knew I needed to remain really calm. I knew if I panicked, or if any of my senior management team panicked, there would be mass panic. So it was a real challenge to stay calm and to say, you know, this is going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. Whilst in the back of my head going, how am I going to solve these problems? You know, so, and, you know, whenever you're a leader, you have nowhere to go. Like, so, you know, I was reaching out to people in other organizations, and thank God I have like lots of little networks that I'm involved in, saying, you know, how are you coping with this, and what are you doing? And just knowing that other people were feeling the very same, there was comfort in that in itself, to be honest with you, John. But I think for me, it was all about just do the next right thing, and just the right, we don't know what's going to happen next week. God, nobody knew what was happening. So just do the next right thing for today, because it all boiled down to trust for me, right?
Yeah.
I needed my team to trust me. I needed our store teams to trust me, and I needed our customers to trust me that we were going to do the right thing for them. And listen, at the end of the day, it's all about people, and if you do the right thing for your people, the rest will fall into place. I always say that.
Yeah.
Even
A-
pre-COVID.
and how did you, because it's this balance, and it's been interesting talking to other leaders. It was kind of getting this balance of wanting to support your, particularly your direct reports who are working from home, without sounding as if you're checking in and checking up. Did you find that you were having to think about and reflect upon that? And how did you really support your team during that time?
Well, I did daily check-ins, John, because I was really conscious of that the pandemic is affecting everybody differently.
Mm,
There was nobody that was unaffected, but everybody had different concerns and different worries. So my situation at home with two young children, I had some team members who had similar
yeah.
circumstances, so I could really relate to that, and I knew, what I was going through, and so therefore what they were going through. But I had to be really cognizant of what about my team members, my direct reports, who didn't have family at home, didn't have children, weren't married, but were actually in an apartment in Dublin on their own and had no support around. And they would normally be going home at the weekends and have that kind of support, or
Yes. Yeah.
or a boyfriend or whatever, or other team members who were really into the gym, or really missed the social element. So even though they didn't have the same circumstances as me, I was really conscious that the pandemic was affecting everybody to different magnitudes at different times. So I knew that the days that I could have been really stressed, somebody else was strong, and the days that I felt strong, someone else was actually having a bad day. So
Mm,
it's almost that release of adrenaline into our systems. At a certain point, it's going to decrease, but we don't know when it is, because everybody has this inner resilience, but you only have a certain amount, and at some point adrenaline is going to leave your
yeah,
body. And
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, and it's hard to know with everybody when that's going to happen and how much can they take. And that has been my whole experience of this. It's been really interesting to see actually how the magnitude of this, how certain people could take a huge amount of this, and other people could only take it in little bits,
Mm.
and how it just affected everybody very differently at different times. So I was really conscious of that. So all I did with them, without micromanaging them, was just phone them and say,
Just keep in touch.
how are
Yeah.
you doing today? How are you coping? Is there anything I can do to help you? It was really back to basics, very
Yeah.
simple.
And of course, there was no playbook for how to manage during this process. I mean, it just is interesting because that I do think that with the chain of pharmacies where you were open and kind of against all of your inclination to kind of welcome people into the store, you're actually telling them to stay out, which has been horrifically difficult to do. But if you look back on that, I mean, it's kind of give or take 9 month period. If you had the time over again, God, please God, you won't. But if you do have the time, would you do anything differently?
I think that the main thing that I would do differently would be to manage my own time a bit better, and to have a little bit more time for myself, because there was a period of time of probably 2 months that I just worked day and night non-stop, because I waited until nearly 6 o'clock until the phone stopped, or 7 o'clock, before I actually did what I needed to do myself in my own role. So whether it be talking to the banks or the landlords or whatever. And I spent the waking hours looking after everyone else. So it meant that I was on from 6 o'clock in the morning until at least midnight, if not later. So I stretched myself way too thin, and I got to a stage where actually I couldn't. You could hear me nearly slurring my speech. I was so
Right.
tired. I was so exhausted, and luckily for me, I have a really strong team around me who I trust. And they're very vocal, and they will tell me if they see something not right, and they did, and they held me to account. And that weekend, that Friday, I went to bed at 7 o'clock on a Friday. I did not waken until nearly Sunday morning. That's how
Wow.
exhausted I was. So I think looking back on it, I was so tired that I couldn't make the simplest decision. That was overwhelming for me, the smallest little thing. But that rest over the weekend, that particular weekend that I'm talking about, like on Monday morning, it was no problem. I could all these little molehills that I had made into mountains, where there was no issue to actually.
Yeah.
I just hadn't got the headspace to do it, because I was just so exhausted. So if there was anything I was going to change, it would be that, just to make some time to close the laptop, walk away. And I would say that for a couple of my team members as well, that I felt like were really working way too long. I would have been more demanding of them to do that, you know.
Yeah.
So some people really managed it very well, and hats off to them. They went and got lots of exercise and all the rest. I wasn't that soldier. And so that is one of my biggest regrets, you know, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, I did what I thought was the right thing at the time to do, and I can make peace with that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look back over that period, Una, what would you say have been the positive impacts, and what would you say are the negative ones?
Well, I certainly definitely think the biggest positive thing that has come out of this for myself and my team is that reprioritization of health, and obviously because we work in the health industry, that's a really positive thing to see. I think that, like, no matter what, and I'm speaking about my own personal situation, you know, I don't care about shoes and handbags anymore, John. It's not about material things. It's actually about back to you know, healthy and are you well, and you know, is your family healthy and well, and actually that overspill into the community as well. We really seen that hugely in community pharmacy. People were calling to neighbours that they had never ever spoken to before to make sure that they were okay, you know, and I would hope that would continue. So I think that whole embracing that we are in it together, and we were in it together, and we still are very much in it together, that I hope we don't lose that. And I think that people are now very conscious and very cognizant. Actually, at the end of the day, it is about our health and our well-being. And so people have prioritized that. And I think that they will take a much more proactive approach to their health, which I think is a very positive thing. So they'll not wait until they get sick. They'll do everything that they can in order to not get sick. So I think the whole move to, like, I mean, we worked so hard with our GP colleagues and with other healthcare providers in collaboration to solve problems. So I think that whole collaboration and that collaborative approach, you know, we fast-tracked, there was so much innovation fast-tracked throughout this pandemic. We have gone on this digital transformation journey within healthcare. Like, we're now doing digital prescriptions instead of paper prescriptions. We can now have an online consultation with our doctor, send that electronically to us. We can get it out to the patient, and we can follow up with a video consultation. So the patient never needs to leave their home. And if you think about patients pre-COVID that couldn't leave their home for whatever reason, they didn't have that customer experience.
They didn't have that, no.
No, now they can. And whether or not, you know, that patient has an underlying condition or not, say that it's a new mum and they just can't get out, no, they can still have that experience. And, you know, people who felt embarrassed about coming and picking up certain prescriptions from us can have that experience from the comfort of their own home. So I think that fast tracking digital transformation has been an incredibly positive thing. And I think we need to embrace that change, you know, and figure out, actually, it just shouldn't stop here now. What else can we do to really improve the customer journey within the healthcare space, you know? And there's so much more we can actually do. And it just shows you in this pandemic, when you're against the wall and you're in the corner, you know, you will find ways. We are so agile, so resilient. You know, when your back's against the wall, you can find ways. So I think we should hold on to that really, really tight and figure out, if you keep the customer, the patient at the center of everything, look what else we could do together collaboratively, you know? So, yeah.
I mean, I think that even goes, I mean, even if in terms of, you look at the way the vaccine has, you know, come to the market, I mean, there's a great example of innovation, because, as you know, traditionally that's been such a long process, and everything is done one step after another, but you do them all concurrently, then you can actually get out there without actually damaging any of the efficacy of it.
So much faster. Like, normally it'd take at least 3 years to get it back. Like, look what has happened, and look at these pharmaceutical companies actually working together for the greater good. So if you think about that, like, if that is possible to solve a global crisis, look, if we actually looked at our competitors differently and think, actually, what is it we're all trying to do? And if we all, you know, it's like the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, isn't it? If we work together, we're capable of doing so much more. So if you approach it with that kind of mindset and embrace this change, and I think that for me, the biggest learning out of the whole thing is, you know, I've been kind of thinking, you know, this pandemic has changed our business forever. We've had to adapt and pivot in so many directions. But I always say to my team, you know, think about what this pandemic has allowed us to do, not because of the pandemic, but what opportunity has it given to actually pivot and take us in a new direction, you know? So it's actually how you approach these things, isn't it? It's the mindset that you
Absolutely.
have.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's been transformative in our business, absolutely. And I would hate to think that we'd ever go back to the way it was pre-COVID. You know, we really
Yeah.
need to embrace this change going forward.
And when looking at that and just talking about that, I mean, as you say, we don't believe in any sector to a large extent that people will go back to the way it was. But what do you see as being kind of the new way of working post-COVID, whenever post-COVID happens?
Well, I definitely think, I think that it's, in terms of this whole working from home, like this has been the biggest, I suppose, project when working from home. So I do think that working from home has definitely given us, it is showing like how we can do this digitally. And like, I mean, I'm having meetings with guys in the States, John, that I've been hoping to get on a plane for years with, to go and have a chat about certain products that they have. Now I can just do it online, and we can do
I know, yeah.
So it's like there's so much that this whole digital and the whole working from home concept has allowed us to do. So I think we need to make sure that we have, I think people are definitely want a blend of working from home and working together or whatever. I certainly do that because I miss people and miss being around people, but it definitely shows you that flexibility and making sure that actually you can allow your people and trust your people to do the job, in whatever environment. I think that's really interesting. And I think that is definitely going to be part of the new way. I definitely think the whole digital transformation, how we solve customers' problems in healthcare or any other way digitally, is definitely going to be something for the new way going forward. I think that people will definitely think much more about their health, and healthcare is definitely going to be prioritized. And I don't even mean like in our space where it's actually all about we serve in the healthcare industry, but actually your people, their health and their well-being.
Yeah.
And I think it's really shone a light on, companies who really look after their teams and really care actually about their health and well-being, because at the end of the day, I don't care what the business is. It is all about people, and people buy from people that they like, and people buy from people that they trust, and people work for people that they like and they do as well. So it is actually all about, for me, people, and actually the core of all of that is actually about trust, really. Okay. So if you can think about, I think that's at the core of everything that we have done throughout this. And people say, how did you manage through it? And it is actually about, like, we're just going to do the next right thing.
Yeah.
And, if we do the next right thing for our people and for our customers, all the rest will fall into place. It might take a wee while, but it will fall into place. So I think, we need to stay agile. We need to embrace this whole digital transformation. We need to look after our people for sure. And I think collaboration going forward just shows you what we can do together. So I think that's definitely going to be the new way going forward. And just having that new mindset where we're looking at everything with an opportunity mind, John, really, looking at it at, how can I adapt my business to adjust to this new world or this new set of circumstances, and remaining agile, having that, that want or that desire to be able to pivot, and so I'm not viewing the pandemic, well, the pandemic did this to me and this is where it's brought my business. Don't look at it like that. Look at it, well, the pandemic has actually given me the set of circumstances or the set of opportunities that actually fast track my business,
Yeah. I think, and as you say, it's about people. It comes back to that, doesn't it? At the end of the day, it's about people and it's about trust. And that's a great place to finish. Oonagh, thank you so much for actually being on here today. So people who want to get in touch with Mars, what's the best way for them to do it?
Oh, well, you can contact us on our LinkedIn page, or you can contact us on any social media. So we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, or you can contact us on service@marspharmacy.ie.
Well, that'd be great. Oonagh, thank you so much. Great to talk to you. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you.